So, I have a little bit of time, and I think I want to use it to talk about some of my favorite J dramas growing up. I want to limit myself because, I've been watching J dramas for many, many years, like over a decade, and I cannot list every single drama that I love. However, I do want to talk about those that I watched when I was relatively younger, so I would say more impressionable. Most of these dramas come from like the early 2000s. Um, I would say within the first decade of the millennium. However, it might just cross over a bit. I'm not really counting. I'm not really going back and seeing when was this drama aired. I'm just gonna talk about it. But most of them would be within the first 5 years of the 2000s, I would say. This is not really a list of shows that I would recommend, simply because I think some of these shows, when I look back on them, I realize maybe the quality isn't that great or it hasn't aged really well, but I just still love them because of the nostalgia factor. They were the show that I loved at a particular point in my life, and I enjoyed them simply because it was the right show at the right time. The first one I want to talk about is really Nobuta will produce. I guess it's not really a show that people think about a lot these days, but at that time it was a really, really popular show, and it basically just catapulted Horikita Maki into superstardom, basically. Um, if you look back at the trio of Nobuta O produce, you would see that Yamashita Tomohisa, Horikita Maki, Kaminashi Kazuya, they weren't like really great actors. I think the person who could really act in that show was Toda Erika, and she's still a delight to watch till this day. But the other three, who are like the main trio, they're not great actors. Even so, they did a really, really good job within like this teen drama kind of world. And I think mostly it was just the story that really resonated. It's a story basically of friendship and of learning to love yourself and also to accept others and not judge others that much. And, you know, really nice themes, right, for a youth drama. I used to think that it wasn't just a great teen drama, it was a great drama, period. And I'm not sure if I think that way anymore, because looking back, I'm not sure I enjoy it as much, but at the time, I know I really loved it. I love all the little mannerisms. I love the little one-liners in the show, and I love the humor of it as well. It was just a quirky little drama, and quite touching in certain places. And I really remember, I think it was 2004 when this aired, that I treasured it a lot. Another drama I would say that I loved so much and I still love to this day. This one I think is a real and true classic, and I would recommend it wholeheartedly to anyone who asks, is Nodame Cantabile. Nodame Cantabile is one of these shows that you don't know why it works that well. It's just so over the top. And one can argue that J dramas in general can be a little bit exaggerated. However, this one was just all out. Is all out. There's no like attempt at all to make it more quote unquote realistic. And all the characters are just straight up zany. Straight up just cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, but they were all so unique, and I would say that the casting for this was just absolutely stellar. There's nobody that dropped the ball in this whole entire series. I absolutely love the cast for this, and I love the story as well. The humor was on point. Everything was just so good. And even the more like emotional scenes as well, like you don't even know how they maintain these kind of like comic characteristics and yet still really tug at your heartstrings. It's just such a wonder. And I think the thing about it is that you know that these characters are not true to life. You'll never find them in real life. However, they just make so much sense and have so much cohesiveness within their world. And that's what I love about it. And another thing is that this is all about classical music, and you just never imagine that these two things could come together, like wacky, almost slapstick comedy together with like high art, which is classical music. Like, you never imagine that these two things could meld as well as they do in this show. Another thing that I think is so rare about this show is that it actually progresses really well beyond the series into the 3 movies that came after. Now, I can tell you that a lot of these successful Japanese drama series tend to have like a special and then maybe a movie that comes after, but it's always kind of like tacked on. It's not really like a real progression of a story, and a lot of times, like 99% of the time, it just sucks, and it just taints your memory of the original show, and you're like, why the heck did I watch it, you know? But with Nodame, they did it so well. You know, Nodame is a character that started off as somebody who's just in love with a genius conductor, and she wants to do anything to get his attention. She has a lot of natural talent, but she doesn't own that talent. She doesn't want to like become better, you know. But as the series progressed, especially throughout the movies, you see her really wanting to become a good pianist and really like get better at what she's so naturally good at already. And so this progression doesn't change the fact that she's still a really wacky character, but it just adds so much depth to her. And what I love is that her relationship with Chiaki as well also evolves as she starts to really care more for music. And it's just so satisfying to see so much progression and so much maturity in a show which is, you know, something that you expect to just be wacky comedy. It's so well done, and I think it definitely stands the test of time. Another show that is an absolute classic, and I would recommend it to anyone, is Hero. Out of all the Kimura Takuya shows that I've watched, and I've watched almost all of them, I would say this is the number 1 show that I would recommend. And yes, sure, he's known a lot for his 1990s romances. However, like, Hero is beyond. Hero, I watched actually in, I think, 2011, 2012. So it was like about a decade after it originally aired. And I was so amazed at how great it still was. Like, it didn't feel dated at all. And it's one of those Jdramas where you really pay attention to the camera work as well. Usually in Jdramas, I feel like their cinematography is so. It's like utilitarian. It's nothing really special. However, in Hero, it is so clever. Everything is cleverly done. All the characters are well written, well performed. It's just so good. Another one that I really liked was Stand Up. Stand Up is about a bunch of guys that want to get laid, basically. They're the only virgins in their school, and they want to not be virgins anymore. So over the summer, they try all ways and means to get laid, which is really funny. And it's funnier because like their parents are very straight-laced and they're very against sex, and so they form a committee which tries to stop all the teenagers from having sex in the summer and things like that. It sounds very crude, and I guess in a way maybe, but it's just so endearing. I tell you, like, this show is about friendship. Their childhood friend comes back from another city. So she moved when they were young and she came back, and she's kind of like a little bit of a nerd girl as well. She develops a kind of a friends to lovers kind of story with one of the nerd characters, one of the boys, who actually likes his teacher. And it's just, I don't know, the whole show is very endearing. And all these guys were actually like I would say the teen idol actors of the time. But some of them were just really good actors. I mean, Ogori Shun, such a great actor, and Ninomiya Kazunari is just excellent at what he does. And I love him being this kind of nerdy guy in this show. A funny thing about stand-up is that I remember so fondly, like, my friends being really into this show, and during that time it's like internet was still pretty slow and everyone would kind of download, yeah, it's kind of illegal, but everyone would kind of download 2 or 3 episodes and burn them on the disc and kind of send them to each other. So that was like really like ratchet early drama fandom, you know, like illegal burning of this and posting them by mail to each other so that you didn't have to download like all 10 episodes. You could kind of split it up. So I remember stand up for that reason. Another show that I love was H2 Kimito Itahibi. Out of all the Ishihara Satomi shows, like nobody really remembers this show because it's so early, and I feel like Ishihara Satomi was still in like a kind of awkward phase. She hadn't really grown into this like super beauty that she's known to be right now, but even then her acting was so good. This show is about baseball, and I have watched a lot of high school baseball shows. I love them all, but this one is just so good. I don't even know, because like Yamada Takayuki himself is a very good actor, and it's so funny to see him grow from this kind of like very cute kind of conventional actor to who he is right now, where he chooses very unconventional projects and he doesn't care about his image and things like that. I feel it's a very nice, interesting progression, but this is a very typical kind of youth story, but just so well written. It's about romance, it's about working hard for your dreams, it's all of that. And what I really love about it the most is the cast. Ishihara Satomi, she plays like this clumsy girl, and usually like even then as someone younger, I really hated those kind of clumsy cutesy heroines, like female leads, you know, but for her I just found her so freaking charming. It's just her, yeah. And I just enjoyed this kind of rivalry in love and rivalry in the game kind of show. I also, one of the most underrated actors in J-drama land is Akiyoshi Nakao. He is always relegated to like supporting roles when he is one of the best actors, I feel, among his age range. And he was also really good in The Girl Who Let Through Time, and his wife is also a really good actress and very underrated as well. This is like a baseball show of my dreams. I still remember it, and it's still one of my favorites to this day. Another show that I can definitely recommend is a couple of Kudo Kankuro shows. Kudo Kankuro, basically he was hot in the early 2000s, and even now recently he just won something for his most recent show. He's just so out of the box when it comes to his shows, and I remember the first time I watched IWGP, I was like, who even goes there? Like, who even thinks of this? The twists and the turns in the show are so crazy. And what I loved about it is it's about teen gangs, and then you have the main lead who's just a good for nothing pacifist, and it's so funny how he refuses to be played by either side, but it's not because he wants to take a stand or anything, but just because he just couldn't be bothered. Like, where would you find a protagonist like that? And it's just so crazy. And when you look at IWGP, like, it launched the careers of so many great actors. You have a lot of recognizable faces in that show, it's just so amazing. So when I came to Japan and I actually went to Ikebukuro Westgate Park, I was like, oh, okay, this is where they shot this and that. Um, it's how do you even describe a Kudo Kankuro show? I would say postmodern, but even IWGP, which is arguably his most famous work, is not my favorite. My favorite would have to be Manhattan Love Story. It is so tightly written. You are going to be pretty mind blown. There's a lot of like breaking the fourth wall, and I just have to say, like, when I think of the words postmodern and think of J drama, Manhattan Love Story is definitely going to be one of those. And it's one of those shows that you have to take note of the opening and closing credits as well. And there's like so much understanding of the audience as well, so much awareness of the audience that it's so crazy, and it fits really well with this cast of characters that are all working for a television broadcasting company. So I would have to say this is completely amazing writing, and Manhattan Love Story, like, you have to watch it. You have to watch it. It's so good. It's not one of his most flashy works, but it's definitely gaining a bit of a following now that we are well into the 2020s. Definitely, um, definitely something that is still quite watchable. Yep, so I think these would be the main ones that I want to recommend. Of course, I still have many, many favorites like Engine, Lunch Queen, and Trick, as well as Liar Game. I think there's just so many shows that I enjoy, but I really wanted to talk about those that were very memorable to me at a younger age. So I hope you enjoyed them. Maybe we'll check a couple of those out. And if I ever feel like talking again, I'll be back to making podcasts, audio recordings. I'll be back. See ya.